Hey, Automathletes, Larry Sorensen here, and today I'm going to talk with Daniel Flick to find out what makes him an automathlete that's not done yet. Before we get started, please remember if you like our content, like, subscribe, and ding that bell for notifications. All right, let's get this thing started. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us today. Why don't you begin by giving a brief introduction to yourself?
Okay, Larry, thank you very much for having me today. Daniel Flick, I am 68 years old. I consider that I'm in life 2.0 right now. After a long career, long activities that I've embarked upon, I actually began my athletic career as a gymnast that I went all the way through college. After college and achieving some pretty amazing things as a ring specialist, I became primarily a weightlifter. So I was a gym guy for many years. What you're going to notice here is that my theme is that there's never been any gap in my athletic life since I began, even though I'm 68 years old today. Later in life, I became a runner, Larry, and I participated in many races, including achieving the Abbott World Major Marathons, which are the top six marathons in the world. When I finished that, I actually scaled Mount Whitney. So there's been a lot of things that, kind of brought me here today, but, I'm a family man with a blended family of four. They're all adults. So we have adult children. I'm now a grandfather of two. We live in Dallas, Texas, and currently I'm talking to you from Tulum, Mexico.
Well, awesome to meet you. You mentioned some highlights of your athletic career over the years.
Yeah.
Give us maybe just a little bit more detail. Go back and tell us a little bit more about what you did and leading up to what you do now.
Well, I began my, we'll say, formal athletic career as a gymnast in high school. I was quite struck by my friend's brother who was involved with gymnastics, and I went to see a practice one day. And I liked the fact that I could be actively engaged all the time. I was actually going out for the baseball team, and I was an outfielder waiting for the ball to come out to me, and it became quite boring for me. So I enjoyed the whole aspect of gymnastics, and I embarked upon that as a ring specialist, actually achieving state. I was the team captain in high school, and I went to college on a full ride scholarship. I went to Illinois State and actually won the Big Ten championship. We actually had a blended conference. It was called Midwest and Big Ten all together. So that was great. And, I achieved a pretty high ranking, number two in NCAA. That was a devotion of my life, Larry. I know my college career, but, my gymnastics career was as important at that time and certainly guided me for the rest of my life, including in business. So when I graduated from college, I became a professional. I was actually an engineer to start my career with Rockwell Collins in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and just look for ways to continue working out because I've always, when I began basically as a freshman in high school, I committed myself to a lifelong program, Larry. I mean, it sounds a little bit unusual that somebody at that age would say, "This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life," but that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So I transitioned to a gym guy and, spent a lot of time, a lot of years in the gym, weightlifting, getting as strong as I could because, that was the objective then. And then later I was introduced to a running club. Actually, my wife introduced me to it, ironically. And what began as doing 5Ks ended up being marathon running. And so, I told you about the Abbott World Majors. Of course, that's Chicago, New York, Boston, London, Berlin, and Tokyo. And so going through that, I actually, that became, I sustained a lot of injuries. And so I was very keen on, making sure that my lifestyle was going well still. But during that time, I achieved some pretty great PRs. Incidentally, all of my running PRs are in my 60s, Larry. And, some of them I think are pretty good. Broke 20 minutes in a 5K. My PR for a marathon is 3:43 at 62. I also ran two half marathons in two countries in one day, Dallas in the morning, Mexico City at night. So there was some pretty cool things in there. But I basically ended my running career just as a lifestyle thing. But after that, I decided I wanted to keep challenging myself. So I actually ended up hiking Mount Whitney, which is the highest mountain in the lower 48 states. And without any planning, that ended up taking 23 hours and 45 minutes. So I would say it was more difficult than the marathon, as it turned out. But, since that time, I'm a gym guy, like I say. I do a lot of walking now. I like to make sure that I maintain a good pace of 15 minutes or less. I'm adding yoga to my program to make sure that I keep flexibility in my life. And One more thing is I have maintained my gymnastics passion, and so I do handstands all over the world. I have about 350 handstands in every country I've ever been in. And it's just kind of a cute little thing that I do is kind of follow the travels.
That's quite the resume that you have there, and obviously you're still in great shape and still doing things. You mentioned a little bit about the walking and so forth that you're doing now. Do you have anything really specific that you've kind of got a target on that you want to embark on?
Let me just say that, to me, quality of life is everything. Okay, so I spend 4 days a week in the gym lifting. I spend another 2 to 3 either walking, 15 minutes is a pretty brisk speed. You got to keep your attention going. I'm also doing elliptical as far as that. So there's nothing planned right now except to just maintain, sustain, and always try to keep improving.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about getting into the gym. Tell us maybe a little more detail. What's a typical week or day in the gym for you? How do you lift? Repetitions,
Yeah.
weights? What are you doing to stay in the shape that you're in right now?
Key number one, I make sure that I'm not going to get injured in my workout program because you can go too far. Like I say, any gym person is going to tell you they're always trying to go to the limit, and I'm always trying to go to the limit, but I don't want to go over the limit. So I don't want to sustain any injuries. But basically, I do a combination of cable machines, hammer strength, live weights, dumbbells, and equipment. And I do on a constant rotation every 3, 4 days. I go to each one of those activities. So that's basically an overall body workout every single time. And I just keep the nature of the workout different so as it continue to go through the week. But even things like hammer strength and live weights is very easy to go too far, but I just make sure that I'm pushing myself because I still want to be as strong as possible, but to maintain my health and lifestyle in the doing.
The athletic training is obviously part of staying in good condition, but
Yeah.
maybe as important, if not more important in many cases, is the nutrition. So give us your approach to diet and nutrition.
I do not eat ever until noon every day. I married a Peruvian woman, so the lunch is the primary meal of the day. So our diet is complete with a lot of beans, rice, good protein, things of that nature. So I don't eat a lot, and that's how I maintain my weight. And my weight is really has not fluctuated, Larry, in decades. So it's looking at that, always making sure that I'm not eating too much, maintaining the right protein, the right nutrients. I'm a big vitamin taker. I think my vitamins are one of my meals for the day, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So it's just a combination of all those things and just kind of sticking with the program all the time and not deviating from it.
Do you count your protein grams, or is it just you've been eating a certain way for so long, you just kind of know what's right for you?
One of the benefits of having been a gymnast, if you're very tuned into your body, and I'll go all the way back to when I was a gymnast. I knew when if my weight deviated by 1/4 of a pound. I knew 1/4 of a pound difference. So I'm pretty tuned in, what that looks like. So it's just like when I go in the gym. I don't need a program to follow. I know what's going on. I've been in a gym more than most people have been alive, is what I tell them usually. So, the program is pretty embedded in me and I follow it and without a lot of deviations. I've never gained weight, so I've never had to worry about losing weight. And so it's kind of just following that program and just sticking with it.
Now, you mentioned you really know what to do and you've been in the weight room for a long time. Do you have the opportunity to coach or train other people?
Well, I've actually had a long coaching career. So I'm not doing any trainings of others right now. But when maybe this is an unusual association, but I can associate gymnastics with many things. And that has to do with discipline, dedication, focus, and all that kind of thing. So I actually became a championship track coach. So I was coaching 100 athletes, boys and girls, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. And I did that for about 8 years. And let me tell you, when you have 100 athletes, I had to recruit 10 assistant coaches. So I had to run a sprinting coach and a throwing coach and a hurdle coach, all those kind of things. So that was a lot of fun. So besides being a professional, which before I embarked upon Life 2.0, that was a career for about 45 years. of engineering, sales, leading partner programs, executive leadership with companies. I took those learnings and applied it. And even while I was, in my professional career, I would use at almost 30 hours per week additional to be a track coach. Not only the coaching on the track with the kids, preparation of who's going to be in what event. It's like a big chess game. And, a track meet, Larry, is 10 hours on a Saturday. So it was a tremendous devotion of time. But I think that if you talk to any track athlete, when the season ends, they just hate not being on the track, and it just gets inside of you. So it got inside of me. I also continued I was a gymnastics coach. Obviously comes no surprise. Cross country, boys volleyball, which was an entirely different experience, and other sports like that. So, my boys went to a Catholic school, and what's different about that from public schools is, parents have to do everything. There are no coaches that you draw on from the school and everything. So we did everything. We built the football field, we built the baseball field, we coached all the teams, and that was kind of a great enjoyment part of my life.
We touched a little bit on your training, a little bit on your diet, nutrition. How about rest and recovery, particularly at 68? How do you approach that, whether it be, just general sleep patterns, but also, like when you're actually working out?
First of all, I'm a big sleep guy. I need 8 hours a day. And if you're lifting hard, you need 8 hours a day. What I do for the recovery, Larry, is because I'm on that rotation, I can pretty much hit the gym almost daily and hit it pretty hard. Otherwise, I sequence in elliptical or walks in between those days. Okay, so I'm fully recovered. My vitamin regimen is filled with a lot of different things that I take as far as amino acids, things like that, magnesium, other benefits to my program to make sure that, I'm able to recover quickly and I'm ready for the next workout program.
All right, so you're 68 years old, fit, feeling good. What's the motivation to keep going?
Well, first of all, I had a grandchild 2.5 years ago. So, I don't know if that makes me an older grandparent or what, but I made a commitment to him, his name's Gio, that I would be there to see him receive his college diploma. So that pushes me out pretty far. So I've got to maintain the program. So I maintain my constant motivation. I told you at, gosh, what it was when you're a freshman in high school, maybe about 14, I guess, and that path never changed for me. So my motivation now is, make sure that I'm there for my grandson, which I now have a granddaughter also. So it's for both of them. So it may have to last even a little bit longer than that. But, that's that motivation of, I actually feel pretty good about, I think I'm a bit different being 68 and maintaining this level of being in shape. And nobody can ever believe it. So that's pretty cool also when everybody tells you that. So that's, my motivation is just daily going to bed, just keeping it going and sustain it for as long as I possibly can.
Would you have done anything differently in regards to your health and fitness if you could go back in time?
Gosh, Larry, I don't think so. Well, I might have tried more things, I might have tried more challenging events. So, I'm also a skier, I love to ski with my boys, and I would love to have, gotten better. I'm all right, but, would love to, skiing is one of those things, the better you get, the more enjoyable it is. It's amazing. So, if I could have done more things differently, I would have just devoted more time into that. I'm also now looking at, become certified from scuba diving, which will be a new challenge for me. I own a home here in Tulum, Mexico. You may not know this, but it's the second largest barrier reef in the world. We also sit on top of the world's largest underground river system. They're called cenotes. You can actually go either snorkeling or scuba diving in the cenotes themselves in underground caves. So that's pretty cool. So, I think that's going to be my next challenge.
If you could bottle what I call your secret sauce to health and fitness, what would the ingredients to that in that bottle be?
Well, physical fitness is nothing if you don't remain healthy, right? If you're injured in spite of your goals and objective, it doesn't matter. So the bottling of the secret sauce is always making sure that you're well-trained, fit and ready, Whatever you're going to do, don't push yourself beyond that. You may need to get there. You need to be pushing yourself to get to that ultimate goal, but don't try to get there too quick because once again, injury will set you back. But bottling that up is, if I could really advise anybody, you've got to maintain a lifetime of a fitness program that allows you to stay within a band. Band being weight, band being effort, band being health, and all that kind of thing. And if you go, think of it like a sine wave, you go beyond that, you're probably going to have problems. And, being a competitive athlete is a little bit different when you're in college. Youth solves a lot of things. I always say with running, with young people, youth, really is a great elixir. And so, you can really push yourself beyond. But as you get a little bit older, you just have to maintain, yourself within that band. And making sure that you do will make sure that you always are able to maintain this as a lifelong program.
Well, Dan, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and letting us know what makes you an autumn athlete that's not done yet. Really appreciate it. I'd like to wrap up today by just giving you the floor to give us some final thoughts.
Well, Larry, once again, I want to thank you for having me in today from Tulum, Mexico. I really appreciate what you're doing for other athletes. And I think others like me that are still on the program, pushing themselves, maybe involved with some other things. It's really those people that are inspiring our kids, the people behind us. I think there's a little bit of incumbency upon us to hand off to the next generation. And what better way than being a great example? And I think that, that is maybe our requirement or devotion in life that we can do for the next generation, either if it's our kids or people around us, observing, inspiring, and making sure that we're handing off the baton.
Well, there you go, folks. Daniel Flick, he is definitely an autumn athlete that's not done yet. Remember, keep moving, set your own goals, and train hard to achieve them. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.